Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of How to Draw Cars. Today we're going to look at doing a convertible in perspective. Now I've got this sketch that's been sitting on my desk for a long time. If you're the owner of this sketch, please let me know. I forgot your name and I forgot the contact information. But there was something about it that I really liked. Now there's a lot of things wrong with the sketch. The ellipses are off and the perspective is a little bit funky. So I thought it would be a good one to use for a perspective demo for a convertible. But there's something about the design that has a certain presence to it. There's a certain character to it that I really liked. And I wanted to do a demo for it. So let's use this as the jumping off point for a sketch of a convertible in perspective. But before we get started, if you're looking to take your automotive design skills to the next level, check out the Introduction to Automotive Design course on the Udemy platform. The links are below. Okay, so let's get started. First thing I'm going to do is put in my ground plane. Cars sit on the ground, so I'm going to draw in my ground plane. The next thing I'm going to do is put in my vertical axis for my front wheel. Now for this car, I'm going to make the front wheel slightly turned, as if the car is making a turn. So it'll look a little bit different when you first see it, but hopefully it will make sense. So I'm making this ellipse larger than it normally would be. You're going to see a little bit more of the circle. And then I'm going to come over the top with the fender opening, and that's going to block it a bit. I'm going to add my 3 wheels between my wheels. That's going to let me know where my rear wheel is. I'm going to throw my axles across. So again, what am I doing? I'm building structure. I'm building a wireframe structure, a foundation. So all the lines I put on top of this structure going forward, all the body lines of the car will all be in the correct perspective. So I'm finding the point of the rear wheel back in space. Again, when you're doing automotive design, you're basically representing your 3-dimensional idea in 2 dimensions. So it's important that you're able to think in 3 dimensions. You're not drawing a flat surface. Even though you're drawing on a flat surface, you have to be able to see the vehicle in your mind's eye in 3 dimensions. And so by building this structure out, you're able to do that. And again, as I'm going along, I'm correcting and I'm making sure that everything is accurate. So again, my front wheel is turned. It's not parallel to the body side. And you'll see as the sketch develops, you'll see a little bit more of the front wheel than you normally would in this perspective. You do this to give the sketch some dynamicism, that the car is not in motion, but that there's a sense of dynamicism to the sketch. It's an easy way to add a little bit more interest to the drawing. So here's the first line I'm putting in my sill, coming around into my fascia. And I'm reaching around to the other side of the car that you can't see, and I'm pulling that line around. Now I'm going to come back with my belt line, and I'm trying to locate it. And I put in my A-pillar. So this car, in my mind's eye, is about the size of a Miata, about the size of an MX-5. So it's not a big convertible. It's a small, tossable sports car. There's my center line coming down onto my hood. And there's the far side of the car. As an open car, you have to be able to draw the car Again, in 3 dimensions. You have to be able to see the car in 3 dimensions in your mind's eye. If you look back at our sketch that was sent in, the windshield looks solid. It doesn't look transparent. There's no seats. There's no instrument panel. There's no detail on the interior that tells you that this car is a convertible. So that's one of the things we're going to fix. So already you can get the sense of volume that's going on. There's a sense of sections and sense of volume in the form. It's not there yet, but it's coming along. So all of a sudden, I've got a solid 3-dimensional shape in space on the page. Now, when I first saw this, when I first saw the original sketch, I didn't realize how much the grill that he drew looks like an infinity grill. And you guys can tell me in the comments if you think that that's the case. And if you are the originator of the design sketch that we're using as a base for this lesson, let us know if you thought you were drawing an infinity. So again, if you look closer, you can still see all the structure lines there, but they're very light. And as I'm coming across now and putting in these darker lines, the lighter structure lines, those foundation lines, that wireframe that I talked about, it's receding into space. It's going back on the page. It's disappearing because your eye is pulling out these much more powerful, much heavier lines. So this is an example of how to use line weight to tell the story of your design. So just like I've built the back section of the car, the part that you're not necessarily going to see, now I'm coming back and building the opposite corner of the vehicle. So if I built the far pass side rear quarter, now I'm going to build the driver's side front fender and into the fascia. And so I'm working the design, again, in 3 dimensions. I'm trying to figure out my proportion of my overhang here. How far forward do I want this fender blade-like form to come forward? And then I'm going to put in the lower part of my fascia here and then throw that around to start to build the volume of the front end. But again, I'm working on top of those structure lines that I put in the first few minutes that I drew, that I was doing the drawing. And then with those 2 lines that I just put in there, I've basically got the volume of the front end of my vehicle. Just put in the ground shadow, and now I've got a form that's sitting on the ground. A 3-dimensional structure in 2-dimensional space. So I'm often asked if there's times where I draw from my hand and not from my shoulder. And you can see as I'm putting in these details on the headlights, I'm drawing from my wrist. I'm drawing from what you would call your hand. By going back and forth with my pencil and throwing a very light line across, I can pick out points in space on the other side of the car that tell me where those details are, and that my perspective is correct. These are very important things, and these are some of the things that are missing on the original sketch. You need to be able to work both sides of the car at the same time. So if I'm drawing in the pass side mirror, I should be able to move my arm, not my hand, but my whole arm across the page to make sure that the top of the mirror on the pass side lines up in perspective with the top of the mirror on the driver's side. Now I'm doing the same thing with the headlights. I'm trying to find where these things exist in space on the far side of the car. Getting these things right in your sketch makes all the difference. So I tell this to students all the time, that there's no faster way to improve than to make sure that the structure of your drawing is correct. Because as you can see, as I'm hanging all these details now on the front end, on top of that structure, they're all correct. And they're all in the right space or in the right place in space. So if you want to improve, make sure that you spend some time and work on that aspect of your drawing. So again, using my structure lines to build the details now, not just the surfaces, but the details, and make sure they're correct going across from one side to the other, from the driver's side to the pass side. Another thing to keep in mind when you're sketching and when you're drawing, when you're designing, is that it's art. It's not science. There's no mathematical formula for doing this and making it look right. There might be, but I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in believability. And when someone looks at one of your design sketches or one of your design drawings, they're also concerned with believability. Does this look believable to me? And if you look at the original sketch, and you can see a lot of areas in the way that the details and the way that the perspective is handled that it doesn't necessarily look believable. And so that's another thing that you should keep striving for in every drawing that you do, is to create an image of a vehicle that doesn't exist yet, right? That's your job. That's what you're trying to do. That's what makes it so hard. This thing doesn't exist in the world, and you're trying to create this drawing that shows your idea for a vehicle that doesn't exist. That's a hard thing to do. And the key to making it work, the key to making it happen, is to ask yourself, does this look believable? Are these elements in the right places on the page? Do the wheels look believable? Are the ellipses correct? Is my perspective correct? And are my details aligned across the surface of the form in a way that maybe is not mathematically right, but visually right, visually correct? And that's what we're striving for. That's what you're always striving for in a design drawing, in an automotive design drawing, is you want it to be believable. So up until this point, we've basically been drawing this car with the same techniques that we would use for a sedan or any vehicle. But the thing that sets a convertible apart from those vehicles is the fact that you can see the interior. So let's work on the interior now that's visible. So I just put in the center line, and now I'm going to work on the tonneau cover, which would be covering the convertible roof when it's down. So again, I can see that to the right of the A-pillar, and I can see it through the windshield as well. So that's something to be aware of. And again, you'll be able to see this clearly because there's no roof. So now I'm putting in the tops of my seats. That's what I'm doing as I'm coming across. I'm trying to visually sight where the seats would be. And I'm going to make the seats a little bit taller than I normally would in a regular car. And I'm going to do that for two reasons. One is because I want the car to scale. I want the seats to look big and the car to look small. That's going to give us that sort of Miata-like proportion. Whereas if I made the seats really low and deep down into the vehicle, the car would look bigger. So I want to keep it in the proportion of a Miata or an MX-5, Mazda. But now again, you're seeing that how visible the seats are when you're drawing a convertible. You can't escape it. You want to use this to your advantage and make the seats and the interior and the exterior sort of one holistic statement. That's always a fun part about drawing either a sports convertible or a luxury convertible, GT kind of car, is that you can really bring the exterior into the interior and you can bring the interior to the exterior. So I'll just add a little bit of shading in here underneath the A line and hit it with some tissue to kind of give it a nice blend. Same thing for the windshield. It just creates that sense of translucency, transparency through the glass. And then just working on my shadows. Again, sketches are defined by their darks and lights. Doesn't matter what you're drawing. Speaking of darks and lights, everyone always asks me what pencil I'm using I used a Prismacolor Premier Tuscan red pencil. I've used them back in my Chrysler days. I did a lot of my production car design work just sketching on a Benfang pad with a Prismacolor pencil, showing the modelers what kind of sections I wanted for my clay model. As always, if anybody has any questions, please leave them in the comments. If you like the information on the channel, please like and subscribe. It always helps. And check out the Udemy course to take your work to the next level. So we're almost done here. Now let's take a look at the original sketch. And you can see where there was no expression of the interior. The windshield does not look transparent. And these are all key things when you're drawing a convertible. So the final sketch has that interior expressed. It has that transparency to the windshield. Yet it has all the key visual elements that the original sketch had. If you'd like to have one of your design sketches featured on the How to Draw Cars YouTube channel, send me an email with the image at michael@howtodrawcars.net. As always, thanks for watching.